Hello and welcome to ANEC's coverage of the girls basketball sectional tournament. My name is Sam Fritt. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering 30 schools across Northeast Indiana and parts of Elkhart County. And so we begin our series looking into the area sectionals by taking a look at Class 1A. We first start off with 1A Sectional 55. This will be hosted by Tri Central. Tri Central is located south of the Fort Wayne area, around nearby Muncie and whatnot. And in this sectional, it has Cowan, Daleville, North Miami, Northfield, Southern Wells, Southwood, Tri Central, the host, and then Westdale. So, obviously, for all of us AEC sports, we know about Southern Wells. The Raiders are having their best season in 13 years, and led by Ashley Nealer, who is averaging over 12 points per game, around 8 rebounds a night. The Southern Wells Raiders have a front court of Nealer and then Kinsey Patson, who can score inside and crash the glass. They have some freshmen playing on this team, with Kaylee Davis being the primary sophomore talent for the Raiders. A sophomore by the name of Erica Bevins, who has become their better three-point shooter as of late due to the injury of Kalina Reeves, the senior forward out of Southern Wells, who leads the team in three-point shooting still at 33%. This is a team that struggles to shoot the basketball. They are only a 22% three-point shooting team. They only shoot around 36% from the floor, which is okay. But when you're a team that primarily scores inside, 36% is a pretty small number for Southern Wells. You look at the sectional, not a very good sectional when it comes to statistics. Gosh, I butchered that one. When it comes to statistics, this is not a great sectional on paper. A lot of these teams struggle to shoot the basketball, and primarily the better teams in the section are ones that can rebound the basketball. So most of the teams we will highlight average around 30 rebounds or so per game. The best rebounding team in the sectional comes from Daleville, the Broncos, and they are led by the junior point guard Addison Gothrop, who's averaging 14.3 points per game. The lead rebounder is Madeline Campbell, the sophomore forward, averaging 9.1 rebounds per game. Levia Pratchard, the sophomore combo guard, leads team in assists with 4.1 assists. And then Trishelle Johnson, the combo forward, is averaging 4.4 steals per game. Johnson, as I mentioned earlier, moments ago, also leads team in blocks at 2.6. Daleville, on paper, when you look at the sectional, has the easier path to the championship. They have Tri Central coming up in the first round tomorrow night. They'll play Tri Central, a team that again struggles just as much as the potential, as much as their potential next round opponent, which is Cowan. The Cowan Blackhawks do shoot 25% from three, but only shooting 30% from the floor. That tells you everything you need to know about Cowan this year. Cowan is located in Muncie. They have struggled for quite some time in girls basketball, and they were given a pretty generous draw with Westdale in the first round. They are a winless team. I don't expect either team to go far in the sectional, but I would say Cowan is more likely to advance to the semifinals. When you look at Daleville as a whole, they destroyed Westdale in the regular season. They beat Tri Central by 24 points. They did beat Southern Wells only by 6, however, 46-40. That was when Southern Wells still had Reeves on the floor. And Gotham had 15 points in that contest, go with her 6 rebounds and 4 steals. So obviously, Daleville has to be considered a favorite here. They swept Cowan on the 10th and 14th of January, 58-21 and 55-25. So clearly, Cowan has the dominant edge when it comes to their sectional opponents, although they have not played North Miami or Northfield, who I would argue have a little bit stronger strength of schedules. When it comes to teams to watch, I think you have to consider the bottom half of the bracket here in this section. Northfield, out of the Three Rivers Conference, they are playing some good basketball as of late. They entered the sectional winners of 6 of the last 7 games, which actually 5 of the last 6 games, I should say. Excuse me. So they've won 5 of the last 6 games, which also includes a 70-67 overtime win over the Whitco Wildcats. Northfield is led by Ellie Baker with 14 points per game. as well as 1.4 blocks per game. She's a 73% free throw shooter. She did reach the 1,000 point mark just over the past couple weeks for the North. So she's a senior on this team. Career high of 42% shooting for Baker, 28% from three. She's averaging 6.5 rebounds, 1 assists, 1.1 steals. Tatum Bear, she's the freshman point guard, averaging 1.9 assists per game. Callie Hoffman, the junior shooting guard, is averaging 7 boards per game. And so they do have some decent players. I mean, Laney Halper leads the team in three-point shooting at 31%. Northfield, generally not a great three-point shooting team, but they are definitely pretty good in the paint. And so they are a team to keep an eye on. But you do have to watch out for Southwood in that first-round matchup with Northfield. They are rivals in the Three Rivers Conference. They are also rivals, Wabash County rivals as well. Southwood is playing some better ball as of late as well. They defeated Southern Wells just last week by the score of, it was by 15 points, and it was 53-35 over Southern Wells, but by 18 points, I should say. They did lose to Northwestern on Friday, 48-44, but Southwood is a team that will hang around in the sectional, led by Hallie Pershing, the sophomore forward, at 9.1 points per game. She also leads the team in rebounds at 7.7 and steals with 3.1. So she's kind of the girl that really keeps Southwood in games here. So keep an eye on that matchup. There could be a potential upset in that first round. And then Southern Wells drew North Miami for their first round matchup. That would be the last game of the not the Tuesday night doubleheader, but that game will take place on Wednesday, I should say. The last of the Wednesday doubleheader between North Miami and Southern Wells. The North Miami Warriors were a former member of the TRC. Now they're a member of the Hoosier North Athletic Conference. They are led by Kaden Donaldson, the sophomore forward, averaging 12.8 points per game. She's also averaging 10 rebounds per game. So she is averaging a double-double per game for the North Miami Warriors. Lainey Musal is a junior guard for this team, averaging 12.3 points per game. She is a 33% three-point shooter. She also leads the team assists at 3.2. So clearly they have a couple of players that clearly have a pretty nice group of kids that can rebound and be able to shoot the basketball. Grace Sailors is another player that can get to the glass. The junior forward is averaging 8.9 rebounds per game. So this is a team that's pretty selfless, but it's a team that can crash the glass, and they can shoot the three ball a little bit. They are shooting 29% from three, which you would say is not the best. But when you look at a sectional where most of these teams are only shooting maybe below 25% from three, you're not seeing a lot of teams with high-quality offenses. And so to me, when you look at the sectional, it's going to go down to which team can make shots, which team can control the glass, and then more importantly, which team can defend their best players. So I think when you look at the sectional as a whole, I think Daleville has the highest chance of getting to Saturday night. They only have to worry about playing Tri-Central, who they've already dominated in the regular season. They're going to see Cowan again for the third time, but Cowan is on a rebuild right now, and I just think Daleville is superior to any of those teams in the top half of the bracket. I think where things get interesting is the bottom half of the bracket. North Miami and Southern Wells don't really know each other, so that will make things a little bit interesting. I do think the injury of Reeves does make the Southern Wells Raiders a little bit more vulnerable against a team like North Miami that does have the shooting prowess of Musal. They also have the presence of Donaldson that can crash the boards and be able to be a bucket for the Warriors. They are just a good enough three-point shooting team, and I think the rebounding depth of North Miami is a little bit superior right now, considering where Southern Wells is right now with their team's depth situation. They're also, Southern Wells is a little bit younger this year, so you do have to wonder, how well would they handle the stress of playing in a postseason game. And so North Miami maybe just a little more experience as well, even though Neeler is a senior. A lot of the main pieces for Southern Wells, they're only freshmen or sophomores. So I think North Miami will probably be favored in that matchup, and I think it will then come down to what happens between Northfield likely and then North Miami. I know Southwood has a chance, but I still think Northfield's a better team on paper, in my opinion. So then when you look at Northfield and North Miami, keep in mind these two teams did play earlier in the season. North Miami won 42-37. However, North Miami actually led 10-0 the first quarter, which is a reason why they won this game. I do think it's going to be a close matchup when it's all said and done. I know from talking with Mason Asher last night, he He feels more strongly towards Northfield, and I kind of get it. They have the athleticism inside. I think Baker's a baller for this North team. They're a little battle tested in the Three Rivers Conference. I think North Miami's schedule is a little bit questionable, considering the Hoosier North Athletic Conference is not the best when it comes to basketball. But I just think North Miami, when it comes to their depth in the post, I think their post play is a bit stronger in my opinion. And I think the 3-point shooting for North Miami, I think puts the Warriors a little more over the top for North Miami, so they can make their shots and be able to control the glass. I think North Miami might be just a little bit better than Northfield. I think that to me is the better matchup of the sectional. And then you got Daleville playing in a championship game against either Northfield or North Miami. I have North Miami playing for the championship. I think if it comes down to who makes the most shots, I think North Miami makes the shots more consistently. The schedule is stronger for North Miami than Daleville. I don't find Daleville's schedule to be overly impressive, and so I think they really will. I think that schedule will be exposed if they play a North Miami or Northfield. If it's Southern Wells, I think it's a coin toss, but at the end of the day, I would take North Miami to win a sectional championship. Next up, we discuss 1A Sectional 52. This will be hosted by Bethany Christian at the Meadowlands nearby Goshen, Indiana, for those who don't know where Bethany Christian is. And I think right off the top of the bat, when we talk about this sectional, right away, that very first game tomorrow night, which is Tuesday, will feature the Fremont Eagles and the Lakewood Park Christian Panthers, probably the two best teams in the sectional on paper, and the two of the more complete teams in the entire sectional. Both teams have had a lot of success this year, and they have dominated their sectional field, although Blackhawk Christian did give Lakewood Park a little bit of trouble in overtime. So Blackhawk is certainly not out of the midst either, per se, but I think Fremont and Lakewood Park are definitely more superior teams on paper. I think this year, considering Blackhawk is in a little bit of a transition period this year, Bethany lost a lot from last year. Canterbury is, well, it's Canterbury still. And then Hamilton, well, it's even more so with Hamilton. It's Hamilton. They're in a mess right now with getting the program situated. And I know Coach Tats is doing his best at Hamilton, but it's going to take a long time to get this program back up and running. Anyway, that's here and there. But with Fremont and Lakewood Park, obviously they're the two best teams in the sectional. I think I'll take the hot take and say the winner of this game wins the sectional. If I'm wrong, I'll eat my words. But obviously, when you look at this matchup, these two teams met way back in November, about 2 or 3 weeks into the season. And this was a two-score game for most of the game. Lakewood Park actually led at the half at Lakewood Park in Auburn, Indiana, for those who don't know where Lakewood Park is. Fremont did come storming back in the second half, played a strong second half, contained midgrade well in that game, and Fremont ended up winning this game 62-44. Now, the big thing with this matchup here is a lot of it's going to hinge on Fremont's ability to defend the post. That is something that I would consider Fremont to have. It'd be a bigger weakness would be their post defense. May not always be the best out there. I also think when it comes to Fremont's defense, it's going to hinge on how well they can contain Ava McGray, the superstar senior guard for the Lakewood Park Christian Panthers, who is closing in on 1,600 career points. I believe she's at 1,573 at the time of this post here. But once you get through Ava McGray, their next leading scorer, I believe, is Lila West, and she's averaging just under 8 points per game. And so your scoring depth goes way down after Ava McGray. Not to say Lakewood Park doesn't have a decent team, but that is to say that Lakewood Park's depth is very questionable if Ava McGray doesn't play at her normal rate, or if not even above her rate. And I think for Lakewood Park, you're going to need Ava McGray to have a special tournament for the Panthers to win their second ever sectional championship, and the first since 2017. When McGray scores 20 points or more in 16 of her 22 games this season, so McGray is very important to this team as she is committed to Trine University next year. Beyond that point, I think for Fremont, you looked at their three best players, Ray Charlotte, Addie Parr, and Maya Turner. Charlotte averaging 15.4 points per game, which leads the NECC in scoring. She is their leader in assists. She leads the team in steals. She's their leading three-point shooter. She's their leading free throw shooter at 87%. Essentially, she's kind of their MVP of this team. When Grace Charlotte is cooking, it's bad news for opposing teams. But she's got to be she's got to be involved offensively. She's got to have a good game tomorrow night, as well as the sectional tournament as a whole. Addie Parr is important for this team because of what she does on the glass. She's a tough kid. She's an athletic kid. She just scored 1,000 points in her career. And when Addie Parr is able to get around 10 points, 14, 15 points, I think Fremont is a better team when Addie Parr is involved offensively and is able to contribute in a variety of different ways. And then Maya Turner is the defensive beast of this team. She is the one that gets after defensively. She's deflecting passes. She's creating turnovers. She's the one that really gets things going for this Fremont team on the defensive side, especially in the post. Maya Turner is considered to be more of a wing, so Maya Turner is very involved on the defensive side, particularly protecting the paints and be able to make life miserable for opposing teams. And when those three players are contributing and they're playing well, it's a hard team to beat. The big thing with Fremont, and it does even affect Fremont a little bit, they're not the deepest team either. Although with Fremont, they do have a little bit more support on paper than Lakewood Park. In addition to those three players I just mentioned, they do have Claire Folk, a senior. She's going to St. Francis for volleyball, and at times with Claire Folk can contribute a little bit, especially on the glass. She's tough. She plays hard. She's a selfless kid, and she's athletic, of course, because the Folk family is pretty athletic themselves. So Claire will obviously be a player to keep an eye on as an X factor for this team in the intangibles. I think Chloe Verdon is another one that could come in and have some decent performances as well. Haley Heller, who's kind of the newcomer of this team right now, she's another one that I think could potentially have a solid tournament as well for this Fremont team. But I think the big thing for the Eagles is going to have to be, number one, you're going to have to be fundamentally sound. That's the big thing for Fremont. Number two, you got to be able to defend the post, especially when you're playing against a kid like Campo Warner or the Martin girl. You got to be able to defend the post well, right? And then the big thing is you just got to make sure you don't let Ava McGrade go bananas, and you don't let somebody else in Fremont have 20, 30 points, right? Obviously, it's rare to see that from everyone else besides Ava McGrade, but the point is you don't want other players to feel good about themselves and make things more difficult for your defense than it already is. I mean, the big assignment has to be, number one, you got to be able to defend Ava McGrade because she's a player that can single-handedly win a sectional game, if not a sectional championship for you. Now, I'm talking a lot about these two teams because it's very unlikely we're going to see another team win this sectional unless you have the upset special with Blackhawk Christian. And I don't think you can fully rule out Blackhawk just because they are starting to play a little better basketball as of late. And they're probably the only team in the sectional that can compete with Fremont and Lakewood Park. So the Blackhawk Braves definitely have to be looked at as a sleeper in the sectional. They are certainly in that midst as well. When you look at who they have on this team, and with Jalen Pickett and Mayla Steele and Avery Ellsworth, the Braves are certainly a team to watch out for potentially. And Fremont and Lakewood Park, either one of those teams will have to be careful about overlooking a matchup with the Braves in the championship game. Again, Canterbury is in a rebuild. I don't see any chance of them doing anything. LCA or Lakeland Christian Academy, nowhere near the level of the other teams I mentioned. Hamilton's in a rebuild, and then Bethany is in a rebuild, although Carly Kroom is a solid player that should have a decent performance in the state tournament, but unfortunately for Bethany, they just lost too much from last year. After the graduation of Zoe Willems and Mariah Stolzfus, it's pretty unlikely we're going to see Bethany win a sectional game this season. So, for all intents and purposes, it will come down to Fremont or Lakewood Park. For me personally, I think based on what I've seen of these two teams this year, and I know Ava McGrade does give me concerns that she can win a playoff game, if not win a sectional, because she's that good of a player. And she's averaging 23 points per game, and she's a player that can score 40 in a heartbeat. I have to take Fremont only because with Fremont, they have a more well-rounded team. They're a little bit more athletic in certain areas. I think there's just a little bit more depth in the starting lineup. I think they're a team that you can look at this Fremont team, and I can rely 4 or 5 players that can do some decent things on this team. And I think that the trio of Charlotte, Parr, and Turner is just too much of a hassle for a team like Lakewood Park that is going to have to defend extremely well in that game. I think for Lakewood Park, obviously McGrade's the big one, but I think Lila West, I think is a decent player. I like what Luca Bontrager does for Lakewood Park defensively. So I think she's a solid player, and she might be an X factor for this team when it comes to the defensive side of the basketball. But I think the problem for Lakewood Park is when it comes to offensive reliance, it's very limited with Lakewood Park. And so unless McGray has one of her historically legendary games, I just feel I just feel much less confident with Lakewood Park than I do with Fremont. So I would take the Eagles. I think it'll be closer than the regular season game, but I don't think it's like so close that I would lean towards Lakewood Park. I would still say Fremont is probably a true score favorite, at least in my opinion, but we'll see how things play out. Blackhawk will definitely be a sleeper in the sectional, but in the end, I just feel much better about Fremont and Lakewood Park at this juncture of the season. All right, we're taking a look at 1A Sectional 51, and this is hosted by Oregon Davis. I blanked for a minute there. Sorry about that. Oregon Davis is a school located nearby the North Judson and Knott's area of the state, which is like north central Indiana in a way. It's like you're in northern Indiana, but you're a little more central. So you're kind of in that middle area of the woods. It's kind of in a remote location in that part of the state. But in this sectional, you have Argus, Culver, Elkhart Christian, North Judson, Oregon Davis, South Central Union Mills. They had a nice team a couple years ago. Triton, a program with rich history of girls basketball. And then Trinity Greenlawn out of South Bend is another one that's in this sectional. When you look at this field, historically, Oregon Davis is another one that's had a lot of success in girls basketball, although Oregon Davis, especially since the post-Coach Minutes era, I think Oregon Davis is certainly not the program that they once were. So I think when you look at this sectional right away, you're looking at Elkhart Christian, North Judson, maybe Culver gets into the mix as well. I've seen a little bit of Elkhart Christian this year, and they're a team with not a lot of big names. They're not a team with big names at all, but they're scrappy. They're tough. They get after it defensively. They can definitely rebound for a school that's for a 1A school. They do have a decent job. They do a decent job rebounding the glass. 25.5 rebounds per game. 15.7 steals per game. So this is a pretty good defensive team, and I think their success is going to hinge on their defense. Now, they do have 3 players that can shoot the basketball and score for them, as Ivy Clapsaddle averages 13.4 points per game. Lily Maxwell averaging 11.5 points per game, and then Kyla Yordi is averaging 10.1 points per game. Keep in mind that all 3 of these players are not seniors. Clapsaddle is just a junior. Maxwell and Yordi are only freshmen. So the Eagles are definitely ahead of schedule when it comes to what the program could look like for next year and the year after that. My worry is that their schedule is a little bit weak. And when you're playing against a school like North Judson that is pretty proven of be able to win the playoffs, I think you need a schedule that can maximize what ECA can do. But North Judson is going to be a team to keep an eye on in this sectional. I would consider them to be the favorites in this sectional. This is a team that averages 31 rebounds per game. So this is a team that probably protects the glass better than anybody else in this sectional. 10.5 assists per game. So this is a team that can share the well for the Blue Jays of St. Pierre. And the steals per game, 12.8 steals, 3.8 blocks per game. So this team, they're really tough defensively, and they got the size to make a difference for the Blue Jays. They do commit 15 turnovers per game, so that is a little bit of an area to watch out for. So North Judson could get exposed a little bit with the turnovers. But I think when you look at the trio of Kaylin Tunis, Kylie L. I'm just going to say Kylie L. I'm not going to butcher that last name here. She's averaging 10.8 points per game, and then Shiloh DeBoard averaging 9 points per game. That's a solid trio of players that can contribute for this team. Kylie is also averaging 9.9 rebounds per game as a senior, 5'9" senior no less. So she's a pretty athletic kid for just a combo guard. She's got the length to make her things an issue for smaller backcourts trying to defend this player. And then Kylie also averages 3.4 steals per game. So she is not only an excellent prospect on the glass, but a great prospect in terms of just all-around ability to shut down people and then creating turnovers as well. The only thing that worries me also for North Judson is this is not a great free throw shooting team. Tunis is their leading free throw shooter, and that's only about 63%. So that is one area that could get exposed in the playoffs. If it's a one or two score game late in the contest, I do worry about their ability to knock down free throws. And then 3-point percentage, Kylie can also shoot the three ball. So she can not only rebound, she can play defense, she can also shoot the ball as well at a 26% three-point clip, which is decent, but it's a team that doesn't primarily shoot the three ball as well as they do scoring inside. And then Culver is another one that I think is a potential sleeper in this sectional. We're talking about Culver Community, not Culver Academies. The only thing is with Culver, unfortunately, I don't know anything about Culver. Max Preps doesn't have anything on them. The other thing with them is they did lose to some questionable teams that I would say are questionable, like losing to South Central Union Mills. That would be seen as a questionable one for me. Now, they did lose to North Judson only by 5 points, and then they only lost to ECA by 2 points in overtime. But I just don't know what Culver team we're going to see in the playoffs. They're a little bit streaky this year, although playing better basketball as of late are the Culver Cavaliers. But I think when it's all said and done, I think the sectional goes through either Elkhart Christian or North Judson. Elkhart Christian, by the way, has never won a sectional championship in girls basketball. In fact, they've won just 4 playoff games combined. And so that would be my biggest concern if I'm Elkhart Christian, is just the history of sectional tournaments has not been good for ECA, although this is probably one of their best seasons they've ever had. So this is kind of a turning point for the program. But I think South Central Union Mills is a team to not overlook per se. Oregon Davis could potentially win a round. But I think at the end of the day, I think the sectional goes through ECA or North Judson. And honest to truth, I would take the length and I would take the defensive prowess of North Judson just a hair more than ECA this year. I think the Blue Jays are a little bit deeper in terms of offensive contributions. I think the size of the Blue Jays is a problem. I think the only way that ECA would be able to beat a team like North Judson would have to be, they would have to be able to ramp up the pressure, and they're going to have to be able to frustrate their bids inside, because I think ECA will have an issue be able to defend the glass against this team like North Judson. So I would take the Blue Jays to come out of 51.